Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to try to figure out a question that seems to be on everyone's minds these days. How can we make sure that everyone benefits from AI, not just, a select few? We've got a ton of different sources for this one. Economics, history, even some science fiction, and they're all wrestling with this problem. Just imagine a world where AI and robots are doing most of the work. I mean, that sounds pretty utopian, right? It's like we'd have more free time and a lot less drudgery. But what would actually happen to our jobs, our wages, even just our ability to build wealth in that world? I guess that's what we're going to be looking at today.
It really is fascinating. We're seeing a massive shift in the foundation of our economy.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. For centuries, human labor has been the main source of value, but AI is changing all that. One of our sources, the AI economy, labor capital and the future of wealth, uses the term compute-driven economy to describe this new reality.
Okay, so compute-driven economy. What does that even mean for you and me?
Well, think of it this way, like factories and physical goods. Those things are becoming less important.
Hmm.
What's becoming more valuable is who controls the data, the algorithms, the processing power, the compute that fuels AI, basically. We're talking about AI systems that can write legal briefs and compose music, things that people always thought only humans could do. So that value is shifting from human skills to computational power, really.
So instead of my labor being valuable, it's my data. I don't know. That's a little unsettling.
It's not just about your own personal data, it's more about the larger systems that control and process data in general. But your unease makes sense. This shift could have some really huge implications for who holds economic power.
And if that power ends up in just a few hands, it's not that hard to see how that could lead to more inequality.
Exactly. And one of our sources uses a really interesting example from science fiction to illustrate this. In Heinlein's book, The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, there's this single, super intelligent AI, it's called Mike, and it controls almost everything on the moon. The resources, even the politics. So it makes you wonder, are we heading towards a world where just a few, like tech giants or governments, control these unbelievably powerful AIs? And
Yeah.
if so, does that mean even more inequality?
Yeah, that's a pretty dystopian vision. Are there any alternative scenarios out there?
Oh, definitely. And science fiction offers some interesting counterpoints. Take Ian M. Banks' Culture series, for
Mm.
example. In that world, there are these really advanced AIs that ensure that resources are distributed fairly, especially in a post-scarcity society.
Mm.
So it's a utopian idea where no one has to worry about constantly accumulating wealth like we do now.
So we've got Mike, the AI overlords on one side, and these benevolent AI caretakers on the other. Those are two very different visions of the future.
And that's precisely why we need to be having these conversations now. We can't just sit back and wait to see which path we end up on. We actually have to actively shape the future of AI and make sure it leads to a more just and equitable world.
Okay, so less Mike and more culture AIs. Got it. But how do we actually get there? Our sources seem to be saying that just hoping for the best isn't going to cut it.
Yeah, you're right. We need to rethink some pretty fundamental economic assumptions. One of our sources actually brings up Marx's theory of surplus value. It might sound a little academic, but it's pretty relevant here.
Marx. Wow, it's been a while since college. Can you give me a quick refresher?
Sure. So Marx argued that capitalists profit from the difference between what workers produce and what they're paid. But what happens when it's AI doing most of the producing? The source argues that surplus value could shift dramatically and end up being concentrated in the hands of the people who own the AI, the data, the algorithms.
So instead of workers being exploited, it's the AI doing all the work, but a small group of people still get the profits.
That's the danger, at least. And that's why some of our sources are pushing us to think beyond these traditional models. They're suggesting things like data ownership, where individuals could actually earn royalties from their data being used by AI. So imagine every time a company uses, like, your online activity to train their AI, you actually get a cut of the profits. That's the kind of radical shift we might need to see.
Data ownership, huh? So instead of companies taking our data for free, we could actually have control over it and get compensated for it.
Exactly. It totally flips the script and gives individuals more power in this new economy.
I like the sound of that. Are there any other examples of these radical ideas?
Well, another concept that's being talked about is universal basic capital, where everyone gets a share of the profits generated by AI, almost like a dividend paid out to every citizen just for existing in this AI-powered world.
Wow. That's pretty mind-blowing. It sounds like something straight out of science fiction.
It does, doesn't it? And speaking of science fiction, one source brings up the book Down and Out in the Magic Kingdom, where reputation is the new currency. I know it sounds a little far-fetched, but it makes us consider whether money itself might need a complete rethink in a world of AI abundance.
Okay, reputation as currency. Now that's really getting into uncharted territory. It makes you think about what other aspects of our lives might be upended by AI.
And that's exactly the point. We need to be ready for some pretty fundamental changes. It's not just about making small tweaks to existing systems, but about being open to entirely new ways of thinking about things like value, work, even wealth itself.
I mean, this is a lot to process already, but I can already hear some of our listeners saying, hold on, isn't this all a little premature? I mean, AI isn't really that advanced yet, is it?
Well, that's what makes things even more interesting. Because while some of this might feel like science fiction, it's already happening. Think about companies like Uber and DoorDash. They're already using AI to optimize logistics and reshape entire industries. They're using it to figure out the most efficient routes, match drivers with passengers, even set prices. And they're definitely not shying away from taking their share of the profits.
So while we're busy debating the theoretical implications of AI, it's already changing our lives and how we work. It sounds like we're in the very beginning of a massive technological revolution.
We are, and the question is, will this revolution lead to greater prosperity for everyone, or will it just make existing inequalities worse? That's what we'll explore more in the next part of our deep dive. I think it's important to remember that this transition to like an AI-driven economy, it's not just about money, you know? It's about changing how we think about value as a society.
Oh, interesting. So you're saying we need to move beyond the usual ways of measuring wealth. Like, what was it, GDP?
Exactly. One of our sources, the Intelligent Internet Primer, it lays out this vision for a future where sustainability, inclusivity, and ethical innovation, those are the top priorities. Basically, creating a world where technology helps people, not the other way around.
So instead of always focusing on economic growth, we should be thinking about things like the environment, social equality, even access to things like healthcare and education. It sounds like we need to consider people and the planet alongside profits.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what? This connects back to what we were saying about democratizing AI. If we want AI to help everyone, we need to make sure it's being developed and used with these values in mind.
Right, right. I'm starting to see how it all connects, but I'm also kind of sensing some tension here. Like, on one hand, we've got this push for efficiency and optimization, which is what AI is great at. But then on the other, we're talking about values like sustainability and inclusivity, which sometimes feel like they clash with pure economic efficiency. So how do we balance those competing priorities?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's one that, honestly, we as a society have to figure out. One way to think about it is like AI is a tool, right? And any tool can be used for good or for bad. It really depends on who's using it and what their goal is.
So it's not really about the technology itself, but about the decisions we make about how to use it. I mean, like, we could use AI to optimize energy consumption and help the environment, or we could use it to automate jobs and create even more inequality, right?
Exactly. Think of it this way. You can use a hammer to build a house, or you could use it to break a window. The hammer itself is neutral, but what matters is the intention behind it. The same goes for AI.
Oh, that's a good analogy. It really highlights the responsibility we have in shaping how AI is developed and used. We talked about those big picture solutions like changing policies and education, but what can regular people actually do to get ready for this AI future? Like, what can I do?
That's where things get really exciting because even though it's easy to feel overwhelmed by all these changes, there are tons of things individuals can do.
Okay, so what are some concrete examples? What are some things people can start doing right now?
Well, the first thing is to just embrace lifelong learning. The job market is going to be changing constantly as AI automates more and more tasks. So people have to be prepared to adapt and learn new skills throughout their careers.
So it's not just about like getting a degree and being done. It's about constantly learning new things and upgrading your skills.
Yeah, exactly. And don't limit yourself to just traditional education. There are tons of great resources out there like online courses, boot camps, stuff like that to help you stay ahead of the curve.
I'll admit, I don't know, the thought of constantly having to learn new things is a little intimidating, but I guess I can also see it as an opportunity to keep learning and explore new areas.
That's the spirit. This is a time of huge change, but it's also a time of incredible opportunity. The people who are willing to adapt and learn, those are the ones who are going to thrive.
Okay, so lifelong learning, check. What else can people do?
Well, becoming data literate is another big one. Data is what makes AI work. So understanding how data is collected, analyzed, and used is going to be more and more important.
Data literacy, huh? So does that mean I need to, like, brush up on my stats and coding.
I mean, it wouldn't hurt. But
Yeah.
it's also about developing this critical eye for data, being able to spot biases, figure out what's inaccurate, understand the limitations of data, things like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. If we're going to be swimming in data, being able to tell what's good information and what's not is going to be pretty important. I'm already thinking about all those like clickbait headlines and misleading social media posts. I've got to get better at filtering out all the noise.
Right. It's about becoming a more discerning consumer of information in general. Don't just accept things at face value. Ask questions, do your research, and think critically about the data you see.
Okay, so data literacy, critical thinking skills. Got it. What else can help people in this AI-powered future?
Well, developing your creativity and problem-solving skills is huge. Those are things that are uniquely human, and they're going to become more valuable as AI takes over more of those routine tasks.
So you're saying that, like, even though robots might be able to do all the number crunching and report writing, they can't replace human ingenuity or innovation. We still need that creative spark, the ability to, like, think outside the box.
Exactly. And don't forget about those soft skills either. Communication, collaboration, empathy, those are going to be essential in any field, no matter how much AI is involved.
So it sounds like you're describing a future where humans and AI work together, kind of like each playing to their strengths. AI handles those repetitive, data-heavy tasks, and that frees up humans to focus on what we do best, creating, innovating, and connecting with each other.
That's the ideal, isn't it? It's not about AI replacing humans. It's about AI helping humans and allowing us to do even more than we could on our own.
Yeah, that's a vision I can get behind. But I think it's important to remember that AI can have downsides too, right? We already talked about the risks of people losing their jobs and economic inequality, but what other things should we be worried about?
Well, one concern is that AI could be used for bad things. I mean,
Hmm.
we've already seen examples of AI being used to spread fake news and manipulate people. And as AI gets more powerful, the stakes of these kinds of threats just get higher and higher.
That's pretty scary when you think about it. It's not just the economy we need to think about, but how AI could affect things like society and even democracy, right?
Absolutely. And this is where science fiction gets really interesting. It lets us explore all these potential futures, both good and bad, and think critically about the choices we're making today.
Okay, let's talk about sci-fi then. We already mentioned Heinlein and Banks, but what other fictional worlds can help us understand how complex AI is and its impact on society?
Well, there's Star Trek, a classic example. It shows this future where technology, including advanced AI, has helped humanity get past scarcity and create a more just and fair society.
Right, the replicators in Star Trek, they're like the ultimate post-scarcity tech. No more poverty, no more hunger. Everyone has access to everything they need.
Exactly. And it's not just about material stuff either. Star Trek also shows how AI can be used to boost human capabilities and encourage things like exploration and discovery. The ship's computer in Star Trek is this really powerful AI, but at the end of the day, it's a tool that helps the crew, helping them make decisions and solve problems.
It's a very different picture from those AI overlords we see in a lot of dystopian sci-fi. What about the other end of the spectrum? Are there any fictional worlds that warn us about the potential dangers of AI?
Oh yeah, definitely. One that comes to mind is The Diamond Age by Neil Stephenson. It's a world where nanotechnology has created this incredible abundance, but that abundance is mostly controlled by a small, powerful group. The main character, this young girl named Nell, she accidentally gets access to this really advanced AI tutor that helps her develop her potential. But her story also shows how deep inequality can become when technology isn't available to everyone.
It's like a sci-fi version of the digital divide we see today, only on a much larger scale. It shows how important access to technology, including AI, is for social mobility and like economic empowerment.
Exactly. And it brings up some important questions about how we can make sure the benefits of AI are shared widely and don't just make existing inequalities even worse.
So you've got Star Trek on one side with its optimistic vision of AI being a force for good, and then we've got the Diamond Age on the other side, warning us about how AI could reinforce those existing power structures. Where do you think we're headed? Are we closer to a Star Trek future or like a Diamond Age dystopia?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? And it's one that we as a society need to answer. The good news is we actually have the power to shape the future of AI. The choices we make today are what will determine whether AI becomes a tool that liberates us or a weapon that oppresses us.
That's a powerful statement. It reminds us that we're not just watching this technological revolution happen. We have a role to play, and we have to do it wisely.
Exactly. And it's not just about making these big sweeping changes or policy decisions either. It's about the little choices we make every day. How we use technology, how we learn new things, how we talk about the future we want.
This has been such a thought-provoking conversation. We've covered so much: the economics of AI, the potential impacts on society, even how science fiction helps us imagine different futures. But honestly, I feel like we've just scratched the surface here. There's so much more to explore. It's really amazing how science fiction can help us get our heads around these huge AI questions. It's like we can explore all these what ifs and possibilities before they even happen.
Yeah, it really is like a testing ground for ideas. And when it comes to AI, those ideas can get really wild.
Okay, so we've talked about all the big picture stuff like the economics, the ethics, even some sci-fi parallels, but now I'm curious about what's happening right now. What are some of the, I don't know, the most exciting or maybe even scary AI developments out there?
Well, one area that's just exploding right now is generative AI. We touched on this a little earlier, like with AI writing legal briefs and composing music, but it's going way beyond that now.
Hmm.
We're talking about AI that can create photorealistic images just from text descriptions, write all kinds of creative content, even generate computer code.
Wow, so it's not just about AI analyzing data anymore, it's actually creating things. What does
Yeah.
that mean for like artists, writers, musicians, people whose work depends on being creative?
That is the question, isn't it? Some people see it as a threat to human creativity, while others see it as a tool that can actually boost creativity.
Oh, interesting. So AI could be a collaborator instead of just a competitor.
Exactly. Just imagine like an artist using AI to get past a creative block, explore new styles, or even create something totally new together with AI. The possibilities are pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's a much more optimistic take than just robots taking our jobs.
Yeah.
What other AI advancements are you excited about?
Well, another really interesting area is AI that can learn and adapt more like humans do. Traditionally, AI has been really good at specific tasks, but it has trouble with things like common sense reasoning or applying knowledge to new situations.
So it's like if you teach AI to ride a bike, it can master one specific bike, but then it has to relearn everything for a different one.
Exactly. But now researchers are developing AI that learns more the way we do, by observing, experimenting, even making mistakes.
That's amazing. But also kind of a little unsettling. If AI starts learning and thinking like us, what does that mean for humanity?
Well, that's a question that's been around for a long time. I think the important thing to remember is that AI is a tool. It can be used for good or for bad. It really depends on who's controlling it.
So we come back to that idea of responsibility again. It's not just about the tech itself, it's about the choices we make about how to use it.
That's right. And that brings us back to the heart of what we've been talking about, this whole question of the future of AI and wealth. As AI continues to advance, these conversations are only going to get more and more important.
We've covered so much ground today, from the economic implications of AI to how it might affect society, and even how science fiction can help us think about these questions. It feels like we're just getting started, though.
And that's the exciting part.
Oh,
This
really?
is a field that's constantly evolving with new questions and perspectives coming up all the time.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into AI and the future of wealth. As our expert has said, the future isn't set in stone. It's really up to us to shape it. So keep learning, stay curious, and most importantly, keep talking about the kind of world we want to create. Until next time, everyone.